That's when Hannibal decided screw it, we're using snake bombs. From the very dawn of recorded history, humans have been inventing unique and imaginative ways to hurt each other. But when our species' own ingenuity simply wasn't enough, we've often enlisted the aid of our friends and foes across the animal kingdom. Yet while you're surely familiar with the military use of cavalry, canines, and even elephants, I doubt you've ever seriously considered the ferocious fighting power of the household cat. But then you are not Persian King Cambyses II, who according to ancient Greek and Roman historians invaded Egypt in the 6th century BC, with an entire army of domestic cats fighting on the front lines. Now not only did the ancient Egyptians consider cats sacred, they actually loved them so much that according to Herodotus, they would even save their furry feline friends from a burning building before rescuing the people. In fact, in ancient Egypt, the legal punishment for killing a kitty was mandatory death. So when the ancient Egyptians saw Cambyses callously carrying the cats onto the battlefield, their entire army refused to fight, and the frustrated pharaoh was forced to sue for peace. But speaking of peace, perhaps no animal is more closely associated with that word than the tranquil dove. Yet it turns out that's only a clever cover for the bird's long history of war crimes. You see, doves and their slightly larger counterpart, the pigeon, have been used as messengers going as far back as 5,000 years, due to their unique ability to orient themselves and return to their homes from anywhere in the world. And for this purpose, they were often employed extensively in military communications, even facilitating the conquests of Genghis Khan. But their true deadly nature was only perfected by a cutthroat queen of the Kievan Rus. After her husband, the Grand Prince, was brutally taken out by a rival power known as the Drevlians, Queen Olga of Kiev laid siege to their capital for over a year. But proving unable to penetrate the city's mighty walls, she offered them unusually generous peace terms, promising to withdraw if they would simply present her with 3 pigeons and doves for every household in the city. Eager to put an end to the whole ordeal, the Drevlians happily agreed. But once they'd complied, she had her soldiers tie a piece of burning cloth and sulfur around each bird's legs, and released them all at once, upon which the frightened birds flew straight back to their own nests, simultaneously setting the entire city ablaze. Of course, as horrible as it may be, lighting animals on fire was no novel tactic at the time. In fact, 1,200 years earlier, the Greek city-state of Megara developed a fiery tactic for dealing with the war elephants of the Macedonians. Ever since the conquests of Alexander the Great, the Macedonian armies had an unfair elephant advantage, importing massive numbers of the beasts from both Asia and Africa. But the Macedonians hadn't planned for the greatest anti-elephant weapon ever invented, the humble hog. The Megarians had learned a secret that Alexander the Great had first discovered fighting against King Porus in India. Elephants are terrified of squealing pigs, and never the kind to do anything halfway. When the Macedonians besieged their city, the Megarian defenders developed their own special strategy to make a pig squeal. Dousing dozens of them with pitch, oil, and resin, they lit the hogs on fire and drove them towards the enemy. Fleeing from the incoming bacon missiles, the elephants turned back in terror, trampling their own troops in the process. But perhaps the people who best perfected the use of anti-siege animals were the Themistrians, who lived in a city that according to Greek mythology was once inhabited by the legendary Amazons. When the Themistrians revolted against the Roman Republic during the Mithridatic Wars in the 60s BC, the Roman armies dug tunnels underneath their walls said to be so large that entire battles were fought underground. But outnumbered by the Roman legions, the defenders turned to a strategy that Winnie the Pooh has been preparing for all his life. Unable to defend against the tunnels themselves, they threw all sorts of wild animals into the depths, but most notably massive brown bears and swarms of bees. And although the Romans did eventually capture the town, the bears sent down those tunnels undoubtedly feasted on more than just honey that day. Stubbornly determined even in the face of nature's deadliest predators, the Romans never showed that resolve more than when they fought off Hannibal, their greatest foe. But after outmaneuvering the Roman legions for more than 15 years, including one time tying torches to thousands of cows in the middle of the night to convince the Romans he was escaping one way while sneaking out the other, Hannibal was finally defeated and was sent into exile by his own people. But even in exile, a commander of his skill could easily find employment. And so he soon found himself at the head of the Bithynian navy in modern-day Turkey, facing off against the much larger forces of King Eumenes of Pergamum. Outnumbered and facing overwhelming odds for the second time in his life, that's when Hannibal decided screw it, we're using snake bombs. Instructing his soldiers to gather up massive numbers of venomous serpents from the surrounding countryside, he filled hundreds of clay pots with the slithering beasts. When the enemy ships approached, he launched the deadly jars onto their decks all at once, at first resulting in laughter amongst the enemy rowers. But once they saw what had slithered out from the scattered shards, every ship burst into panic, and not knowing whether it was safer to stay sitting or swim, the forces of King Eumenes were utterly routed by Hannibal's men. Following up his success with 2 more crushing victories, Hannibal then had a few years of relative peace, before he was betrayed by Bithynia and besieged in a castle by the Romans, and the brilliant tactician was finally taken out for good. But if you think incendiary serpents are the most creative way to win a battle at sea, then make sure to subscribe for the next edition, where I'll cover the craziest ways to win a battle on the water.